This is Patitos Gang, and today we're looking at a step forward. In two previous episodes on Amotekun, we began to engage with the challenge of security, a challenge that meant that not just community policing, but regional strategies for ensuring that policing gives true security to people. We've been engaged on the fact that it is a fundamental human right to ensure your own safety. This is why people have a right in self-defense to get somebody who wants to get them. Having done that, there is need to be clear about how you implement such policies. In the Southeast, for example, the governors have met with the Inspector General of Police. There are all kinds of sounds and hot air, off air, no air, and stuff like that. How do we ensure effectiveness of this policy? I like to talk about the principle of subsidiarity, moving government closer to the people. Government cannot work unless it is close to the people. And Amotekun is, for some of us, the beginning of engaging at the level of subsidiarity in public choice. But there must be a strategy for getting things done and done well. What are these necessary challenges that we need to engage to ensure that this necessary move for security is sustainable?
My first point will be to say I'm glad.
You know, I am glad that you are glad, but that man looks like an Agbekoya man, because I lived in Agbekoya territory, and I thought that we Agbekoyas should engage this matter before bourgeois like you come into the matter.
I agree, Prof. And I mean, we're fully in support of Amotekun. And I mean, looking at it from where you're coming from, it is important that we start right. Now, the initiation of this idea, it came from the governors of the Southwest, and so far they're not doing badly. Yeah, recently they went back to the IG and they signed that it was going to now be community policing. But if you look at it very well, you see what they're also trying to achieve is that they are trying to bring governance, like you rightly said, and then policing, security, closer to the people, which is the bedrock of proper security. But the key thing is that in order to make it work, we're just starting the process. I think it's a long-term process. It's not a short-term process. It's a process that is just starting. We need to have the right structures in place. The people driving it must put in the right structures, the right policy. Because the challenge that we currently have with the current Nigerian police system that we have has little to do with funding and the likes, but has more to do with the structure, the system that we're running. Now, Amotekun, for it to fly and for it to achieve its real objectives, it must be built on the right foundation. The system must be there, the structure must be there. Now, at the moment, they're doing some form of state policing. There's going to start as a state, community, but eventually have the state assemblies or currently are putting it into their laws. However, we need to ensure that not only do they do that, even in recruitment, right? Starting from recruitment, structure, strategy, even for arresting and all that, it needs to be more visible to everybody. We need to have a clear direction of how to go about it.
You know, one of the reasons that some people give for being skeptical about local policing is that they go back to the 60s and talk about when native authority police in the north and in some parts of the country were used to intimidate and harass citizens. And I have consistently argued that that is not enough grounds to say that a function which everywhere in the world is more effective when it is local, like policing, should be left at the center. And I like to give often the American example. When I lived in the United States, the university that I went to had its own police force. The city had its own police force. The county had its own police force. The state had its own police force. Now, the point is, in the way the US system has evolved, once there's a human rights violation, it kicks up to an FBI matter. So I don't think that those excuses for not wanting to do what is right in applying the principle of subsidiarity hold water. But I know that this man here, that he used to lead his own small patrol in Papa maybe his army has some rules that are different from the ones that we've had around the world.
But you know, I have this attitude of always wanting to describe a bottle I see more as half full than half empty. I also am very happy, like I said, my Agbekoya, Adekombi Agbekoya, and my international lawyer will perhaps Professor Abbas will bear me out on this. Little steps in right direction is better than just being static and retrogressing. Why I'm happy is that the whole initiative of what you've just described, whether it's neighborhood watch, whether it's people clamoring for state police, regional cooperation, is coming home to roost. And, you know, the dissenting opinions and voices are now beginning to coagulate into real communication. One of the reasons why I'm happy is that I think we have a pliant and reasonable Inspector General of Police in Adamu, and he has paid visits to some of the regions. Well, he's been to the southeast, and immediately after he came from the southeast, came back to Lagos, and I saw the governors all lined up to say, look, there is absolutely no duplication or wanting to usurp. Rather, it's going to be a cooperation.
But I don't agree with that. In policing, you need duplication, multiplication, and extrapolation.
Prof, what you need is synergy. What you need is synergy, one feeding the other, because at the end of the day, it's all based on intelligence. I will agree with Adekombi that yes, we need to put all those structures, and those structures are now coming on stream. In the Southwest, the state governors are working with their state assemblies, and I see an agreement in principle to put the laws, dot the I's and cross the T's. I also see a situation where, very, very important, the entrepreneurial aspect, which is one of the things that I have always kicked against. Because when you do not take care of the hygienic needs of people you say work for you, you end up getting monkeys, 13,200. I think that clearly should be looked at. I think some of the state governors are saying they're going to look at it, pay them some good wage. And I disagree that this should just be a mass thing. It should be much more intelligent. Let's look for effectiveness rather than populism.
I think the question is implementing Amotekun. And I've heard what the two gentlemen said. But I think there's some issues here, seriously speaking. And number one, when Amotekun was conceived, and I can proudly say on TV, I'm one of the 25 people brought together to do the intellectual work for Amotekun. It wasn't intention at all for each state to implement its Amotekun. Otherwise, why do we call it regional security outfit? That is a fundamental departure from what the original vision was. Now, in law, in international law, when you have a problem with interpreting the treaty, we resort to what you call trava preparatoras, which is the historical document that you relied on in enacting that particular, to guide you in arriving at the original meaning that was intended by the founders of that particular treaty or drafters of the treaty. We've departed in a way because we failed to consult with what the original vision was. I think in the bedlam, I use the word bedlam deliberately, in the bedlam that followed the launching of Amotekun by the governors, everything went. They just dropped everything in there. Number one, you talk about hygienic, looking after Amotekun. How do you want to do that? Ekiti is not going to pay the same thing Lagos will pay Amotekun corps. It's not going to happen.
Standard of living is different.
And apart from the capacity of the states differ, which is why we thought make it regional from that point of view will work. I would have thought, to be honest with you, that of course each state has individual parliaments, no doubt about that. But we have Odua, so people are saying that you cannot have a regional. It's a nonsensical argument. Odua investment is the whole of, it's regional, basically. And nobody has said that is illegal. So you could have the 6 parliaments in Southwest coming together for the purpose of Amotekun and say, we are going to enact a single law among all of us that will govern the operation and operability of Amotekun to allow for standardization of the processes and harmonization of all our resources. But what you are doing now, and I don't want to go into the area of the IGP and this and that, but I can see what is going on today. What you are doing now is that you begin to pander to certain views, to massage some certain egos, so that we are not seen as confrontational to the federal government of this and that. And at the end, what's going to happen? Now, I like when Prof said there must be, you said there should be duplication, as the governor said. Prof said there must be duplication. I would say there must be functional, not redundant duplication. What you're going to have, what you're going to have, if care is not taken, is you're going to have a duplication now. When you are talking, you said Amotekun is not community policing. It's not. The federal government is doing community policing differently from Amotekun. They are different ballgames. Now the question is, what is going to be the relationship between the community police of the federal government and the Amotekun? What will be with the Amotekun and the police, and so on and so forth? That has not been thought out at all. So what you might not have, eventually, if you are not careful, which I call redundant duplication, is that you may have a situation in which it becomes a LASMA and FRC on the FRC officials on the road. You don't know who to obey.
Demola, your fears are founded.
But before we begin to deal with fears, I have to deal with people outside who want to make a contribution. Okay. So we will go and hear their voices, and then we will return. But before we go, just to make a point about redundancy and all of that, some of the best writing in public policy back in the 70s and 80s came from a gentleman called Aaron Wildavsky. And he makes the point about democracy's strength being in complex redundancy. There are times where you have to have redundant processes to ensure that it's more effective. So I do not believe in this fear of duplication. I even want multiplication if there is something girding them and ensuring that, unlike FRSC and LASMA, you don't have conflict. On that note, we'll go and hear the voices of the people, and we'll be right back.
When the government is seen that way, it will be reduced. We don't want people that are just striving to get there.
It's a good initiative. If a government we have entrusted with our lives cannot protect you, you have every right under international law to protect yourself. And that is exactly what the Southwest governors have done. So kudos to them.
Amotekun is a child of necessity, a child whose time has come in view of what is happening today. I'm from Delta State. In my town, 2 women were abducted by Fulani herdsmen, identified Fulani herdsmen. One of the vigilantes gave chase, but there were too many. They overpowered him. Really, 14 people were killed. And on interrogation, they found out that these soldiers who accompanied the herdsmen to go and abduct and kill 14 people are repentant Boko Haramists, according to the governor's aide. Where does it end? We're living in hard times, and my advice to everybody is to arm yourself and defend yourself. There is no government cannot defend you. This government cannot defend you. I'm advising my people, arm yourself and don't wait for government. I support T.Y. Danjuma. His call for self-defense is overdue.
And we are back. This is Patitos Gang, and we've been talking, implementing Amotekun. Now that some very interesting ideas have come on the table, that there were clear thoughts about the direction this could travel. It didn't happen by accident. It was rigorously thought through and put together, but politics has intervened, and people are playing up and pandering, and therefore they are confusing implementation. What are we going to do for people to begin to have confidence? Military rule has done so much damage to this country that we all keep looking to Abuja, and Abuja is making a mess of our lives. So how are governors, how are citizens going to purge themselves of this? What do they think in Abuja? Because Abuja doesn't know what it is doing, much less fix what we can do for ourselves.
Again, harping on some of the fears that Demola has espoused here. If truth must be told, there's also an argument that is out there in the marketplace that the Dawn Commission wanted a much more holistic approach that takes care of the hygienic needs that I talked about, operational and what have you. And then along the line, politics crept in. I'm glad that the governors of the Southwest stepped back a little, decided we are going to put the right step in the right place. I think the communication should continue.
Yeah, we should not lose sight.
Nobody is going to shoot Amotekun down because Amotekun is the voice of the people.
But we should stop being apologetic about the fact that the mantra of the 21st century is self-determination. Precisely. That the fundamental human rights of people, which the United Nations came to agree on, coming out of the 20th century, which was a century of genocide, is that people should have a right to essentially protect themselves, be protected by others within the space they live in, and if that space cannot, from without the space, the international community has a duty to ensure self-determination of human beings.
I agree with you. I'm not sure. I've heard that the federal government is saying that should not happen, even though the body language of some of the officials might be tending to what. I'm not sure.
Because they don't understand what they are doing. They always think politics rather than
the federal
service.
The federal government through the Attorney General virtually, in a manner of speaking, made a reverse. Said, look, we have been quoted out of context. The people's voice is real, and it is for us as citizens, just like you are saying, to just continue to push the envelope. Okay? Put the conversation. This is what we want. This is how it should go. And if they get convoluted along the line, they don't understand it, it's also our responsibility to educate them, to communicate it to them on a regular basis.
What I also think, before Prof also responds, I also think that what they're doing at the moment, like we rightly said earlier, this conversation was going haywire. Some people were taking it was being misconstrued at some point. It got to a state that a lot of other regions who have started setting up a lot of things, and they felt, I also agree with what Prof said, that yes, we all have a right to that, but I don't think we are there at the moment. We are not there as a country as to regional determination or regional salvation, whatever. However, I think what the state governments are doing, and what they are all going to do eventually, is that they're still going to achieve the objective. I believe the objective of Amotekun will still eventually be achieved. However, they're going to achieve it with some more political correctness. So they will listen to everybody and say, okay, we're going to do, that's what they're currently doing. Approve it at the state House of Assemblies. There will be disparity from Ekiti to Lagos, like you rightly pointed out.
Let me jump in there.
But I think they're going to achieve the objective.
Let me jump in there. I in my previous life, I had the opportunity of working with some international organizations.
Your previous life?
Before Lagos State I worked with the UN, with the African Union in those days. And I remember one of my first disappointments with the African Union. Somebody, then I was in Europe, somebody asked me to define the African Union. I said, it's nothing more than African vices multiplied by 54 places, point blank. And that is because I sat there. I drafted a major treaty for the African Union in those days. But when you listen to our leaders talk, they use that same word, we will collaborate. I'm sure you hear it, we will collaborate, we shall reach out, we shall. They won't do anything. Those are just empty phrases. I understand we need to collaborate, but give me concrete things that we are going to collaborate on.
Well, we did the structure.
Wait. I've gone through the two, maybe you haven't done, I've gone through two laws already by two of the Amotekun states. You need to try and read them. Almost everything has been ceded to the police today, point blank. If you have to operate on the basis of those laws, I'm a lawyer, and I can see that going to be some issues at the end of it. What I'm saying, we need to sit down and immediately rethink what is the original purpose of Amotekun? How best can we move from point A to that point B?
Which is what they're doing.
That is what we need. Yeah. Now, whether it is what they are doing or not, the jury is still out there. What is the purpose of calling Amotekun a regional security network? If you are going to leave it at the end of the day to individual states to implement it as it deems fit. What you are doing then is what I call that redundant, what they call redundant duplication. Because so you have the police, and each state command has its own commission. You have the police commission, then you have Amotekun. Now the federal government is recruiting community policing. So what I'm saying is that at what point do the 6 states in the Southwest come together and tell themselves, this is the original vision?
The American police is not competing at the state. Look, when I was in grad school, the state governor came to watch a basketball match on campus. The school had a famous basketball team. His car had the crests of governor of the state. His driver did not park well. Campus police gave him a ticket.
That's how it should be.
That's the point I'm trying to make, that it doesn't have to suck up to the next police force. It should be able to independently exercise policing function.
And I'm saying, Pat, we got into a situation, and I used that cliche, and I said, discretion being the better part of valor. What will be the point? From the groundswell of opinion that was already going, the politics and the intrigues, was going to shoot.
We facilitate these funny politics by giving them. Look, Nigeria is crippled today because of this funny politics.
And I agree with you.
We're not having rational public conversation because we are playing to somebody's ego who is destroying my life.
The crippling has not just started now. It's been on.
Let's fix it.
We got now. Yeah, of course. And
fix it.
And my point is that we're already fixing it. We're already on the right path.
Fixing it by not being able to talk clearly, straight to the point.
First of all, ensuring that whatever it is that we want to do is backed by law, and that is going on now. By ensuring that the operational modalities that is going to be for Amotekun to allay fears here and there is being addressed, and we are seeing that. It's because security is everybody's business, and because, like you rightly said, security is something
it cannot fall worse than this. We are living in the most miserable place on earth. This is the poverty capital of the world. We need to start going up than pandering to people who are making us poorer every day.
And we are already moving on the direction.
Which direction?
I see that we are already taking some steps. Even if it is feeble steps.
Do you know that?
I like to say.
You see, there can be motion without movement.
Yeah.
That is what we have to be very, very careful about.
Okay.
Look. Let's understand what is. I'm happy for one thing. That Amotekun has come to stay. We are glad. The next question is, where does it go to? The Dawn Commission in Ibadan has done a fantastic job in bringing Amotekun to the fore. People sat, and I was one of them. 3 days when the governors were doing their jamboree on the television, for 3 days in the hotel in Ibadan, and crafted Amotekun. I'm saying you cannot throw away that document. And then what we are doing, otherwise what you'll be doing, you'll be groping in the light, not in the dark. Naturally, you grope in the dark, but you're groping in the light because there is clarity about what this thing is supposed to achieve.
On this light versus darkness, on this light darkness scenario, I would like us to go to some light on Instagram, on Twitter, and all of that. Keep it coming, and perhaps we will finally see the light. This has been Patitos Gang, and we'll see you next week.